Hey, everybody. My guest today is world renowned health freedom fighter, Dr. Bryan Ardis. What he is going to share with us on how to access what you don't know about your medical care and the medicines that you might be taking will rock your world. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Next Level Healing. I'm your host, Dr. Tara Perry, and my guest today is world-renowned health freedom fighter and speaker, Dr. Bryan Ardis. He is a tireless researcher, always seeking to weed out deception in health and medicine and seeking to provide truth through his personal research and product formulations. Dr. Ardis has a gift for researching and presenting complex health issues and insights in a simple and easy to understand format. Dr. Ardis operates on the premise that nature has all the answers to your optimal health and healing. Welcome, Dr. Ardis.
That is me. It's great to be here with you. I hope everybody at home is doing great. Thank you for spending some time with us today.
So when did you first realize that traditional medicine as it's offered has some gaps in it and isn't all it's cracked up to be?
Yeah. All right. Let's start with this one. This will be exciting. All right. So number one was when I was 21 years old. My sister at age 11 was diagnosed after spending 3 months in 3 different hospitals. She was diagnosed finally with a condition called systemic lupus erythematosus. She was at Scottish Rites Hospital in Dallas. And then my parents were called in after a muscle biopsy of her thigh after 3 months of no one being able to figure out what was wrong with her, giving no diagnosis whatsoever, and just sending her home from the other 2 hospitals after a month. She ended up in a 3rd hospital for a month, and then Scottish Rites had diagnosed her with systemic lupus erythematosus and told my parents, this is your daughter's prognosis. There is no known cause and no known cure to lupus. This is a very rare autoimmune disease that most children don't get, and this was in the 1990s. So this was a while ago. But they were told that she would have to be on 3 drugs for the rest of her life because there was no ability to cure her of this condition because medicine doesn't even know what causes it. So she has to be on methotrexate, Plaquenil, and prednisone for the rest of her life, 3 prescription drugs, and told my parents this. Oh, just so you know, be prepared. These 3 drugs to manage her pain and to improve her quality of life, which is all she has for hope for the rest of her life. She was 11 years old, y'all. Listen. They told her she's going to have to be on these drugs the rest of her life, and these drugs over time will destroy her liver and her kidneys, and told my parents on day 1, she will die most likely before the age of 40 because the drugs will destroy her internal organs, and then said this. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Ardis, but one of those drugs is called methotrexate. This is a chemotherapy drug, by the way, that a lot of rheumatoid patients are put on for rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibro, you name it. But they told my parents that day that unfortunately your daughter will have to live on this the rest of her life, and it has a published birth defects and stillbirth side effect. She will never bear children as long as she's being treated for lupus with these drugs. So the prognosis to my parents when I was 21 years old, I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I'm very protective of my family members. When my parents told me that the medical profession, after 3 months and medical test galore and billing insurance galore, after 3 months, they actually said, we don't know what's causing her pain. There is no fix for it. You have to stay on these 3 drugs for the rest of your life. Oh, these drugs are going to kill her, by the way, and she'll never have a family and will never be a mother. That was her outlook on life. I actually that day looked at my parents knowing nothing about the medical profession, only wanting to play basketball every day and play basketball in college and play basketball in the NBA. That was my goals at the time. I actually heard my parents tell me this prognosis, and out of my mouth came these words. I'm not letting that profession kill my sister because they don't know what's wrong with her. They just said they don't have a clue what's wrong with her. We don't know what's causing her pain. We don't know how to fix it. There's no cure. There's just these 3 drugs. And to me, it just sounded ridiculous. I was like, wait a minute. I guess I wasn't brainwashed to just accept everything medical doctors say. I must not have watched General Hospital growing up as a soap opera to be convinced that medical doctors have all the answers. But to me, this was like the most asinine thing I'd ever heard said. That we don't know what's wrong with your kid, and we're going to drug it, and it's going to die early. It's only going to live another 3 decades, and it'll never have children. Well, I just need all of y'all to know, at that moment, I told my parents I wasn't going to let that profession kill my sister because they didn't know what's wrong with her. I said, something happened to her 6 months ago. She was fine up until she was 10 and a half years old, then she started having pain all over her body. This was when I decided that I wanted to know everything about health, everything about how the human body is designed, and how the body can heal. And is it true that it can? And I told my parents that day, same day, that if there isn't a profession I can find who actually looks for the causes of pain and suffering, like in my sister's case, then I'll figure out how to heal her. And so I actually just decided I was going to become a doctor in that moment and go learn everything I could. I set off to go to med school, then ended up in chiropractic school, acupuncture school, nutrition school. When I had another situation happen where it created massive amounts of doubt in me with the medical profession. And everybody out here watching this, you've had a moment in some other vocation or some other setting or some other context where something was said, something happened, and it changed your whole paradigm of thought about something, either your relationship with that person, your job, your vocation, whatever it was you were signing up for. You realize, oh my God, I didn't know I was signing up for this. Okay, I just learned something. Yeah, common sense kicked in and you learned something that you didn't like, or there was a different reality possibly that you accepted and you went to go discover. Is it true? In this case, for me, it was, is it true that the medical profession knows everything about health? Because it appears they don't know a damn thing about lupus. They actually said it out loud. We don't know what causes it, and there is no cure. Okay, great. Well, the truth is, I was shocked to learn there's no cure for any conditions called medical illnesses or diseases. In fact, wherever you're going, if you have lupus, if you have osteoarthritis, if you have gout, if you have psoriasis, if you have IBS, if you have Crohn's, if you have celiac, if you have Parkinson's, it doesn't matter. They don't have a clue what's causing your problem. In fact, they tell you, we don't have a clue what's causing that. We don't even have a cure for any of those. There's no cure for any of them. This is amazing to me that there is no cure for any condition medically, yet you're all told to go ask your doctor if this drug is right for you. It's amazing. Every time you turn on the TV, turn on a Hollywood movie or episode or show, all you're seeing are drugs being taken, talking about medicine, showing hospital rooms, waiting rooms, medical doctors, and you always see prescriptions. It's all programming to get you to believe that this institution has some help for you when they don't have any, but to drug you or to cut things out. It's weird. All right, so that's number one. I realized then they didn't know all the answers to at least this
And the US is
autoimmune disease.
particularly interesting in that we spend twice as much as everybody else does and get worse outcomes.
Amen.
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
The second highest spending country in the world is Germany, and we spend twice as much as they do every year. It's amazing that we are dead last of all industrialized nations keeping babies alive to 1 year old. That's called infant mortality. America sucks more than all the other industrialized nations keeping babies alive till 1. Still to this day. Also, we're almost dead last on all chronic illnesses and obesity. Amazing. So for all the expense of healthcare in America that we spend money on, and all the insurance premiums you pay and deductibles that you pay, and then all the insurance coverage for all the healthcare they provide you in prescription drugs, to this day, there is still not a single cure for any medical condition ever diagnosed ever. Can you believe it? That this industry still has no fix for your health problems. Okay, let me open this up for you. Okay, this is true. Picture you and your car. Have you ever owned a new car?
I have.
You bought a new car?
Well,
ever?
close to new. I always get them with a few miles on it. It's just way cheaper that way.
All right, so you get a car. It's new to you. Now, everybody out there, if you ever bought a brand new car, just think about this. You bought the car. You've known from day one how that car drives. You know how it functions, how it operates, how it feels. You know the experience of driving your car. You alone have spent all the time with this car since you got it. Now, could you imagine if something weird started happening in your car and it was affecting the experience of your drive in the car you love that you purchased? Now, you know something's wrong. You can either hear something or you see something. Could you imagine going to a mechanic who is certified to work on cars and fix cars? Could you imagine going to a mechanic and that mechanic looking at you and going like this, we don't know how to fix cars and there's no cure for cars or their problems? But I want you to know would you still leave your car there? Would you still take your car there and go, I'm going to drop it off, do all your diagnostics, do everything you want to it. I'll be back in a couple days and you tell me what's wrong with it. If they actually looked at you, handed you a brochure and said, we don't actually know anything about cars. We don't know how to fix cars. We don't know what's wrong with cars. But yes, we'd love to do an assessment of your car, vehicle.
And we're going to charge you a lot of money.
And we're going to charge you no matter what we do to your car, even if it's worse than before. we're going to still charge you. In fact, if you showed up 3 days later and the car's in 100 pieces and it doesn't run anymore, and they tell you we took it all apart, we did every diagnostic test you can think of, we did an MRI, CT scan, we took your transmission fluid, your oil pan, we did everything. We ran blood test, oil pan, brake fluid, transmission fluid, we ran it all. We can't find anything wrong with your car.
And we've given you the best automotive care that we possibly can.
However, I'm really sorry to tell you this. Your car will no longer ever run again. It is dead. You're going to have to take it to the junkyard. Junkyard's about to come pick it up and go crush it. I'm really sorry. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. We can't fix it. You're going to have to bury it. Could you imagine them looking at you and you sitting there going, what? Your eyes are huge. And then could you imagine them handing you a bill for all the testing and taking apart your car, even though it has to go be buried and it's dead? Could you imagine still paying them for doing anything with your vehicle? This is as dumb as it is to take your loved one into a hospital and them to look at you and go like this. I'm really sorry, but we need you to sign off on palliative care and hospice care. There's nothing else to do for you. We need to murder your loved one in front of you and euthanize them with midazolam, morphine, fentanyl, lorazepam. You name it, any sedation drug, Precedex. We need to inject these drugs inside of your loved ones to suppress their ability to breathe, but we're going to tell you that we're doing this for their pain and suffering, to reduce their pain and suffering while they take their last breath in front of you. Oh, and we're still going to bill Blue Cross Blue Shield and Medicare for all of this. You came to us wanting us to help you and restore you back to health. We sucked. We didn't do it. In fact, we're going to now poison them to death in front of you and charge you for it. That's exactly how the medical industry works and operates. To this day, right now, regardless if you go in there looking for help and they can't help you, they're still going to bill you. And even if you die, they're still going to bill you. And you still have to pay them. It's weird. This is the only industry where you can suck up, not provide any value, and still make a ton of money.
So in your experience, what are you finding is the biggest cause of cancer, heart attacks, high blood pressure, all the rest of it?
Very good. All right. So it's the number one cause for cancer, chronic illnesses, you name it. This is very simple. You already know this. All of your health is predicated upon an internal environment that is healthy or toxic, or an external environment that you're living in that is toxic or healthy. It's the only thing. The human body, it's really simple. I'm really sorry. All of you are looking for a diagnosis. Most of you are thinking there's some rare, mysterious, complex diagnosis that someone just hasn't figured out yet is the reason for your suffering. So you keep going medical doctor, specialist to specialist to specialist, looking for this unique test, this unique diagnostic diagnosis. Just so you know, none of your suffering is really mysterious or complex. It is if you go to your medical professionals and they don't know anything about how the human body works. That's unfortunate, but they don't get any nutritional training, a lot of anatomy training to understand how the immune system even works. The body's amazing. God infused an immune system that knows how to do everything it needs. The problem is we put too many poisons inside of it and on it and inhale it. And then we live in environments that have too many toxins, poisons that make us sick. And if you just addressed reducing the toxic load at which you're living in or what you're putting into your body, your entire life and quality of life changes. The human body is required to take in 3 things every single day, or at least most days: air, water, and food. You need air, you need water, you need food. And sometimes you'll hear people talk about dry fasting, which is no food or no water, but you still have to get air. You're going to have to breathe. And then there's sometimes you're going to do water fasting. You just have water and air, no food. You're still getting air and water, so you're still going to live a little while.
And the advantages of fasting are?
And the advantages of fastings are your human body can expend all of its energy to heal you, repair you, and detoxify you, versus consuming energy to break down all the crappy food and carbs and fats you're eating all day long in your diet. So this is the blessing. Stop putting food in there your body has to use up fuel for, when in fact your body can now focus on resting and healing the human body and detoxing it.
Are there any people that shouldn't fast?
Are there anybody? Ask your doctor if fasting's right for you. Everybody's different. That is a good question.
This is not
There might be people that are like,
medical advice. This is
I
us
mean,
having a
how
conversation
many
here.
diabetics have to take sugar tablets? Type 2 diabetics, right? The blood sugar is getting too low. They got to take sugar. So yes, some people probably need some carbs every day in the journey of healing, but still, you can still reverse type 2 diabetes, which is 90% of all diabetics. You just need to go learn how to do it. And if you go read, for example, Dr. Jason Fung's book out of
Yep.
Canada,
Yeah.
read the diabetes code. I know people that are currently in my audiences that have lost 120 and 140 pounds and reversed their type 2 diabetes in 1 year, just following our recommendations that include that book, which is clean up your diet. I just talked about air, water, and food dictates the quality of living of the human body in your experience. Therefore, the quality of your air, water, and food dictate the quality of your living experience. Do you put good air in your body? Do you put good water in your body? Do you put good food into your body? Or are you putting crappy air, crappy water, crappy food, or no water whatsoever and just processed foods, fake foods?
What is your preferred water intake? Is reverse osmosis okay for people that don't have access to clean, natural environment water?
Very good. Number one, don't just trust your environment water. And definitely don't trust your city's supplied municipal water. Oh my God, they even tell you
I've
what
been
all
to the water
poisons are in that.
I've been to the water treatment plant. It's pretty interesting what that water goes through.
Amen to that. All right. So if you have city water coming to you, it's being supplied to you, you're paying for it, you should still be filtering it. So at a bare minimum, at healingfortheages.com, we have a free guide called Homebrewed Holy Water. In fact, our very first year's conference in 2023 was all about how to clean your water and not go broke doing it, like in your own home. So we introduced all of our audiences around the world to companies that we had bought products for to determine how clean does it make the water and does it really get out all of the added metals, all the added scaling stuff, all the fluoride, all the phthalates and everything else that's published to be in the water. So what we found was there are certain filtering devices that we recommend to people. A gravity filter, for example, from the company Alexa Pure, is the company we found had the greatest gravity filters for purifying the water.
I have
After the
one of
gravity
those.
filter, the gravity filter is very cheap. It's not very expensive. You take that water that is just in a bin, filtering through a filter with gravity, pulling out a bunch of the chlorine and other fluoride compounds and parasites and whatever else is in there. And then you take that water and we put it in a distiller and we distill the water. These are the final stages. And then we take the distilled water and we pour it through a structuring device into all of our pitchers that we drink with. So none of this is really exorbitant. You're not thinking $10,000, $20,000 for healthy water in your home. This is like several $100 or maybe $2,000 at most to be able to get the distiller, the gravity filter, and a structuring device.
That's pretty awesome. How long do all those last? Do you have to replace them every once in a while, like every several years?
The gravity filter itself is about every 6 months you change the filter. However, you can clean it yourself with your own hose, with your own faucet, and just shoot water inside of the filter and make it last another 6 months. So each filter can last a year, and we teach people how to do that. It's very helpful. And then
Awesome.
we do have RO systems in our home, and yes, those filters, you have a membrane, you've got some charcoal filters in there. Some of those filters need to be changed every 6 months. Some
Yep.
of them are every 2 years. The
Mhm.
membrane typically is every 2 years, and then the other detoxing filters on an RO system are typically every 6 months to a year, if you want to do that.
Awesome. And if you have a well, then you go get that tested to make sure it's all clean and pure?
If you have a well, you want to make sure your water is tested, but then also you want to gravity filter it, distill it, and structure it. I would still do that. Absolutely.
So if somebody's sick, what kind of testing do you recommend they do to find out what's going on in their body and what methodologies they can do to get healthier?
Very good. That's a great question, actually. What test do you run if someone's sick or doesn't feel good? All right. So there are a myriad of examples of illness and symptoms that people can be having currently. Anybody watching or listening to this, you may be wondering what test is he going to say he mentions for me? I just want you to know there's a billion different symptoms the human body can experience in different parts of that body. And your suffering with me listening to you, walking through a medical history would tell me what test to consider for you. That is a very big ask. So I want to actually just share with you an answer because I have an answer. Ready? All right. So I wrote a book. It's called Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. Anybody who is sick with any of the current 200 symptoms or medical diseases that are now lumped into what is called long COVID. And anybody out there listening to this interview, if you have current symptoms, asthma, insomnia, diarrhea, constipation, palpitations, chest pain, tachycardia, AFib, brain tumors, blood clots, it doesn't matter. If you have any of these symptoms, even high blood pressure since 2020, think about your life. Do you have any symptoms or health conditions or concerns that have started since 2020? This book is for you. And I actually lay out for you in chapter 15, all the medical tests you should tell your medical doctors to order to run in your specific case for your specific symptoms to actually answer the why you have that symptom. And then I also lay out, based on the results that come in, what is the antidote for each of those test results. So, for example, if someone called me right now and said, I have the flu or I have pneumonia, the very first thing I would tell them is, well, if you know that, you should definitely be on nicotine. And you should be on 3.5 milligrams of nicotine if you're older than 12. And if you're younger than 12, put a 1 milligram nicotine patch on your kid. Guaranteed overnight, you're going to see amazing results of this person getting over this respiratory infection called the flu or pneumonia. You're going to see a miraculous result. Then, I would also recommend that those kids younger than 12 be on 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 5,000 milligrams for anybody older than that. Then there's other homeopathic remedies and all kinds of stuff we can offer in herbal extracts that also help and assist based on what their symptoms are.
So for the people
testing's
listening
very
that
important.
aren't familiar with your protocols, I actually did your nicotine protocol. Would you just explain, because most people are thinking, oh, nicotine's a horrible thing. It's in cigarettes. We all want to stop smoking. But it is interesting that cigarette smokers had lower incidence of COVID. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, there's a whole chapter in my book. It's actually titled Just in the Nicotine of Time. And I show research studies from around the world, from France to America, where they actually found and published why it was smokers for the entire period of COVID-19 were the one demographic of all people who appeared to be immune to SARS-CoV-2 virus and never got COVID, never ended up in hospitals, and never died. They are still to this day the least represented peoples to ever get COVID, PCR test positive for COVID, have symptoms during the pandemic, or end up in a hospital or die from COVID-19, are smokers. And French researchers in April of 2020 figured out why. And I take you through that research study in the chapter titled Just in the Nicotine of Time. April of 2020, that's 5 years ago. Can you believe it? 5 years ago, 4 months into the pandemic, French researchers published why nicotine is the perfect antidote to all things COVID. And if governments, they put in the research study, if governments around the world would give their citizens, I'm not joking, they actually write it, if governments around the world would give their citizens nicotine agents like gum, mints, patches, you could end the COVID-19 pandemic in 2 weeks. This is what they said.
When did
You
that
could
come out?
end-
When did that information come out?
April of 2020 is when they published this research study out of France.
Well, they did a good job of burying that.
Oh, the very next week, Anthony Fauci goes on the Today Show and goes on every single news outlet and says new data has been coming in from researchers around the world about COVID. And this is what he has said ever since May of 2020. He came out and said, new scientific data has confirmed that smokers are at highest risk for getting COVID-19, being hospitalized, and dying from COVID. Therefore, there's no better time than now to quit smoking, America. And they have said it to that same tune to this day, when in fact they know smokers were the least to get COVID, least scared of COVID, least to ever get COVID, and they were never going to sign up for the COVID-19 vaccine agenda, which is exactly why Anthony Fauci had to go into the media to lie to all of you to quit smoking, all those that were using tobacco products, because they weren't getting sick and they would never go get the COVID-19 vaccine, which is exactly why Anthony Fauci 40 years ago was put into this position at the NIH.
So your book answers the question from what you've learned, where COVID really came from and what it really is.
Amen.
Do you want to share that?
Sure. Yeah. All of you can read the book and be very excited about it. You're going to learn a lot. It's very exciting. Every medical doctor that's read it has actually said and texted me, oh my God, I had no idea about any of this. You just changed my reality about all things health, all things viruses. Forevermore, we have been lied to since med school. This is what they all say. Yeah, you got to read the book. It's got tons of research in it. And it really puts together this narrative of all my whys. Like when I just recommended nicotine, you should know why I recommended nicotine. Because everybody else on earth is like this. It's addictive. It causes cancer. I don't want to touch it. But I really need to let everybody know here real quick before we dive into the why nicotine works. I need to get rid of I'm not listening to this anymore because nicotine's addictive. I know you're thinking that right now, and I know you're having a hard time with this. Many of the parents that I just said, if my kid had pneumonia or influenza and they were younger than 12, I'd put a nicotine patch on them. I guarantee you all of them were like, oh my God, I can't listen to this anymore. I would never, I hear this from parents all over the world. I would never think about giving my kids nicotine. It's addictive. And I go like this, really? You would never give your kid nicotine? No. Then I look at them and go like this. And everyone at home, I want you to listen. Everybody out there who thinks nicotine's bad for them, I want to ask you, when's the last time you ate a tomato or ketchup from tomatoes? Because tomatoes are the third highest containing nicotine plant on Earth.
Wow.
The fourth highest containing nicotine plant on Earth is white potatoes.
Hmm.
So I'd like to ask you, when's the last time you ate a potato chip from Frito-Lay? When's the last time you ate French fries? When's the last time you ate tater tots? When's the last time you had hash browns? When's the last time you put both of those, potatoes and ketchup, together? That's 2 doses of nicotine from the fourth highest containing plant, potatoes, mixing it with red tomatoes to get ketchup and French fries. So anybody out there telling me they're not okay giving their kids nicotine, I need to correct you. You're giving your kids nicotine every time you take them to Chick-fil-A, every time you buy a Frito-Lay potato chip, every time you buy them Pringles. It doesn't matter. If it's made from potatoes, you're loading them up with nicotine. You just didn't know it.
And what
You
kind
actually-
of quantity is in there?
You actually don't care about nicotine. You just didn't know that nicotine was in all these other plants. The second highest containing nicotine plant on Earth is eggplants. In fact, all the nightshade vegetables have the second highest containing nicotine group of plants on Earth. So zucchini, bell peppers, squash, they all have nicotine. What's even more amazing is celery and cauliflower have high amounts of nicotine. And I'd like to ask you, now that you know you've eaten all these things that have nicotine, have you ever woken up in night sweats from your withdrawal symptoms from this addictive vegetable? And have you ever asked your boss for a cauliflower break because you had cauliflower at a church function the night before and you haven't forgotten about it because it was so addictive? No. Tobacco, the University of Harvard published in 2016 that nicotine is not what makes tobacco products addictive. It's actually man-made chemicals the FDA allows since 1970, 15 of them to be exact, and they name them in the paper. They're called pyrazines, Pyrazines. These are man-made chemicals that the tobacco giants added starting in 1970 to their cigarette and tobacco products because people weren't buying them as much as they wanted. So the FDA told them, hey, you can just start adding pyrazines to your product. These are to provide aroma, but they're super addictive man-made chemicals. And as you inhale them, suck on them, if it's snuff that you're dipping, then you are absorbing all those pyrazines into your body, and that's what is creating the learned behavior addictive qualities of tobacco products, not nicotine. In fact, Harvard wrote in 2016, and maybe you at home knows more than Harvard does. If you're sitting there thinking you know more about nicotine than Harvard does, Harvard published that as a result of reading 7 million pages the FDA sent them on R&D, research and development papers from the tobacco giants around the world, they read 7 million pages. 7 million. 7 million. They said 7 million. If you haven't read those 7 million pages, you might not understand this statement. At the end of this 7 million papers of review, Harvard says we recommend the FDA start regulating pyrazines more than nicotine as the addictive substance in tobacco products.
Wow.
Okay, so Harvard said that is not what is making things addictive. And if you want to learn more about that, at the Dr. Ardis Show, I have a PowerPoint presentation and a podcast I created. It's over 3 hours long called The Other N-Word. And it's all about nicotine. And what you don't know is nicotine has been published for the last 30 years to be a cure for Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, ulcerative colitis, a digestive disorder. It's also published to be a cure for arthritises. And they published that nicotine is 4 times more anti-inflammatory than it creates any inflammation. So any inflammatory conditions benefit from nicotine alone.
So a lot of indigenous cultures use rapé or hape. So that's a really different experience than smoking a cigarette.
Amen. You blow tobacco ash up your nose.
Yeah. And
It's gross. I've done it multiple times.
You said it's gross?
Yeah, I've done it twice, and I vomited for 2 hours every time afterwards. It was a horrible experience. I will never do it again. But yes,
Well, I did not have a
Hape is
horrible
used
experience.
around the world. And a lot of people don't react that way, but I did.
Interesting.
The tobacco plant has been used as a medicinal plant in all countries around the world for 5,000 years. But in 1994, the FDA decided to lie to all of you and tell you that nicotine was addictive and you should avoid it. And if you want to know why, Go watch my presentation. I show you their why from 1994 till now, why it was they had to make nicotine and tobacco products look dangerous and deadly to convince all of you to quit using them. And actually, COVID-19 was a part of that plan in 1994.
Well, they didn't do a very good job of convincing everybody not to use them because there's millions of smokers. And
There it is.
I guess
However,
due to
do
the
you know what the
outages, they're-
difference is between 1994 and the amount of people using tobacco products in America alone when they started the lie that nicotine was an addictive substance? Do you know how many people stopped using tobacco products from 1994 till 2020 when COVID started?
A lot.
There was 51% of the American population was using tobacco products in 1994. So over half of all adults. When 2020 hit, the CDC published that year that only 11% of Americans are currently using tobacco products. So their campaign since 1994 over 20 something years actually reduced by millions how many people in America were actually using tobacco products. That meant now 90% of all Americans were ripe to lose their taste and smell, become hypoxic, and actually experience COVID symptoms and PCR test positive to push their vaccine agenda forward. They had to get Americans to stop using tobacco products because tobacco is the ultimate cure for all things COVID. And it ain't just COVID. There's a whole lot of other things nicotine is a benefit for, curative agent for, treatment for, and preventative agent for. And if the medical profession ever let that get out, I can name 100 different prescription drugs used by millions of people right now in America every day for their conditions that would never have to be prescribed if the truth was allowed to be told.
So you have podcasts on these.
I do.
Okay. And they can just go to any podcast platform and
Yep.
scroll through them and find them. What are
Yeah.
your most popular podcasts? Because I heard one you did on how there's a high rate of parasites within MS patients in the brain.
Yep. Yeah. In 2016, the Great Rocky Mountains Lab, actually dissected the brains of 10 different MS patients who died. They got brains from the LA coroner's office. They dissected those brains, cut them into little bitty slivers, and then took cerebral spinal fluid samples of all of them and found that 100% of all MS patients, why they have plaques in their brain, holes in their brain, looks like Swiss cheese, is because every single one of those brains had 3 to 6 inch worms living in their brain, eating their brain matter, digging tunnels in their brain.
And have you seen MS patients do some protocol either? And there's, from what I heard from your broadcast, the herbal tools are quite helpful for being anti-helmetic. Have you seen people that were suffering from MS who did an anti-parasite protocol and had their symptoms improve?
I've actually seen patients, even my own family members. I have a sibling who was diagnosed with MS and a year later was told they must have been misdiagnosed because there's no evidence anymore of anything in your brain and nothing there. So yes, I've seen it. And many people around the world have used nicotine patches now, nicotine gum, used anti-parasitic products that I educate them on to rid their body of parasites. And I educate people on stool sample tests, where to get those, where the cheapest ones are, the most efficacious ones are, they get the best results in their findings, and where to get those. So we tell them where to get the stool sample test, how to analyze the reports that come to your email. And in those reports, it tells you what prescription medications should be considered in their case. And if you don't want to use those, what nutritional products you should use. And out the gate, there's a product called Biodefense at the Dr. Ardis Show everybody should be on. And it combines some of those plants I've talked about by other researchers. It was discovered in 1992 by Hilda Clark in Canada, that she could cure over 100 different cancers in 5 days or less using just 3 herbs. 100% of 100 different cancers were cured in 5 days or less, and she only used 3 herbs to cure them. It was red clover, sweet wormwood, and green walnut hull extract. All 3 of those in combination cleared, as you read her book, How to Cure All Cancers from 1992, Hilda Clark. When you read her book, she talks about the reason why she could cure all these cancers is because every single patient was told they had metastatic cancer or some terminal cancer. And the actual problem they had was not cancer. They actually were being misdiagnosed. They had parasitic infections in their liver, creating these masses or tumors or any of the cancers they were being diagnosed with. And if she treated any of these people for 5 days with these 3 herbs, every single one of them would reverse their cancers. Their tumors would disappear, the parasites were resolved, and then the cancers disappeared. So then the question should be for you, around the world right now, you mentioned doctors you've interviewed or met, but there are doctors like Paul Merrick, Pierre Corey, and others who are producing white papers right now about fenbendazole, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine curing cancers. Well, I started 4 years ago an interview with Dr. Lee Merritt, where she asked me when I had taught her about remdesivir in her audiences and what the safety concerns and risk of that drug were in hospitals for COVID-19. She asked me, what other lies have we been told in medicine? You're a chiropractor. What else should we be knowing? Because we've learned from you about this. And I said, I actually opened my mouth in that interview and said, how many of you know that 80% of all cancers are actually parasite infections? And if you just clear parasites and treat patients for parasites, all their cancers clear up. And 80% of all the patients I ever saw who were diagnosed with cancer, all we did was put them on anti-parasitic protocols and it cleared them of the cancers. So then the next question became, is it really cancer or is it really parasites? If all these anti-parasitic drugs like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and fenbendazole, which are specific to kill parasites, are being taken by humans and cancerous tumors are disappearing, are they really cancer or are they really parasite egg sacs or larvae or worms? You might have to answer that for yourself. However, every medical doctor in America and Canada, ever since the Flexner Report in 1910, has been told that parasites don't exist in America. They only exist in other countries. So if you heard that for 4 years and you were being tested and the test on your Scantron was true or false, parasites exist in America, and you wanted to make an A to pass that class to get to the next one, you would have to write true, parasites don't exist in America. This is how they indoctrinate you. And when you get out of school, you tell your patients, sorry, parasites don't exist in America, and you look like an imbecile and an ignorant, uneducated human because every human in America knows they have bought a dog or cat and had a pet and took it to a veterinarian in America. And every single one of them were tested and found positive to have heartworms, which is a parasite. Oh, and every veterinarian on earth is trained to educate their patients who own the dogs or the cats that heartworms transfer from the patient, the dog or cat, to humans. Like 100% of the time. In fact, you ask a parasitologist how many people in the world have parasites, they'll tell you 90% of all humans in the world have parasites. And they all in unison say the same thing. The next statement always is 100% of pet owners have parasites. Well, veterinarians know it. Parasitologists know it. If you go to the CDC's website right now, they tell you 90 million Americans right now. There's an article in the CDC right now. 90 million Americans, that's a third of you, have chronic illnesses due to parasites. And they tell you which ones. Isn't that amazing? How can the medical profession actually believe and be told and taught that parasites don't exist in America when the CDC, which represents American citizens, actually publishes a third of all of you have parasites causing your chronic illnesses?
So if somebody doesn't have symptoms, I'm guessing some people take these herbs prophylactically?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually educate people to do a parasite cleanse every 6 months of their life.
Okay. And where do you have that listed?
Yep. So if you go to the drardisshow.com, you can go to the shop all button. There's a parasite test kit in the window that drops down. You click parasite treatment, parasite test kit, and that test kit shows up. You should at least test yourself for parasites at least every 6 months or a year to see, are there any worm eggs? Are there any worms in your stools or any bacteria or yeast that doesn't belong there?
Are there many false negatives for that?
I haven't seen any.
Okay.
It is so specific. It's awesome. Yeah,
okay.
You'll see.
Cool.
But it also ranks the level at which the amount of those bugs are in your body. And they rank them on a scale of 0 to 4. If none's detected, it's a 0. If there's a little bit detected, there's 1. If there's a different measurement, higher measurement, there's a 3 or 4 denoted, you have a lot of that infection in your body. And it's pouring out into your stools and it's coming out of your rear end. And they see the evidence there. It's pretty awesome.
So parasites, contaminated food, water, and air. What are some of the top detoxifying agents that you like? There's a lot that are popular. There's bentonite clay, activated charcoal, zeolite, chlorella, spirella. chlorophyll. There's all kinds of things that people do to enhance their health. Which ones are you fond of?
I love it. All right. So detoxing agents. I love that question. All right. So number one principle we always educate people on is you should be detoxing every single day. Now, those of you listening, you're going to go, well, what do I take? And I'm about to take my notes. No, I just need to let you know, first off, your body detoxes every day and it's supposed to. So make sure you're doing this stuff because God designed the human body to detox itself every day and every minute it's alive. So from the time you've been born, your body poops, pees, sweats, and breathes. And this is the way the body gets rid of toxins. So make sure you're breathing, make sure you're sweating, make sure you're pooping every day. If you're not, you're sick and you're toxic. So make sure if food's going in this hole every 24 hours, it's coming out the other hole every 24 hours. That's how it works. If it's not doing that, you're toxic, you're ill, and the likelihood of developing colon cancer goes up for every day you're not pooping every day. All right, so these are the basic ways the body detoxes. Now, what can you use to assist the detoxing process? I love apple pectin powder. In fact, nobody during COVID was even talking about it except for me, and I was telling everybody, apple pectin powder, for anybody considering these COVID-19 vaccines or around them, you need to be on apple pectin powder. Those worried about being shed on, those worried about the vaccine technology, whatever. Inside of the COVID-19 vaccines was polyethylene glycol 2000 and a chemical called polysorbate 80, both of which apple pectin powder will bind to and remove from the human body. And these chemicals punch holes in the blood-brain barrier. Why else do I love apple pectin powder? And why did I harp on this 24/7 for the last 5 years? Because not only did Operation Warp Speed introduce poisons to the world and new technology in the form of COVID-19 vaccines, the same day Operation Warp Speed was signed by President Donald Trump, he signed Operation Telecommunications. And most people don't know that. And Operation Telecommunications was to ensure that in 2020, the first year of COVID, that every single human had a 5G tower built and erected within 25 miles of every human in America. So 5G towers had to go up, and it had to be within 25 miles of every human in America in 2020. All right, so 5G radiation is a big deal. Radiation in general, EMFs are a big toxic deal. You get them from your phones, your laptops, your smart devices, LEDs. These all play a role with the COVID-19 vaccines, by the way. They're introducing nanotech, metals, and they all interact with the EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies and fields these devices put out that we're all exposed to. Did you know that at Chernobyl and at Fukushima, these two nuclear power plants, when they exploded or leaked, did you know that the only way that scientists figured out how to get cesium-137, the type of radiation they were all exposed to? Anybody living around those two plants? Did you know that those at Chernobyl and Fukushima, Japan, started developing thyroid cancers, everybody of all ages, being exposed to that ionized radiation called cesium-137? Do you know that scientists at Chernobyl discovered the only way to get all the radiation out of people within 8 weeks to prevent them from developing thyroid cancers was using 1,400 milligrams a day of apple pectin powder? And in fact, it was so successful that in Fukushima, 30 years later, they just looked at what the scientists did in Russia and they were like, oh, well, how are we going to protect the Japanese? Oh, let's just make sure we give everybody within a certain distance of Fukushima's nuclear power plant leak. Let's make sure they all have adequate amounts of apple pectin powder. And they have used it this whole time to reverse and prevent thyroid cancers and other cancers and death from those being exposed to the radiation. So if they can do that with that, I continuously recommend 1,400 milligrams of apple pectin powder every day. And it also goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Remember the old adage you and I learned when we were in elementary school?
An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
You better believe it. And what's inside of apples?
Apple pectin.
Apple pectin. Bring it on. Now, there are some other detoxing agents I love. All right, so let's talk about a few of these. If anybody got the COVID-19 vaccines, I'm really sorry. And if you haven't read my book, you don't know this yet. But the two people who invented them, you mentioned Robert Malone earlier before we started this recording. Robert Malone did not invent the COVID-19 vaccines. I'm sorry. But
he invented the mRNA.
Yeah, there's two people who did invent the mRNA technology in the COVID-19 vaccines. And their names are Katalin Kariko and Drew Weissman.
Okay.
And they're at the University of Pennsylvania. In fact, they just got the Nobel Prize in Medicine for their invention in the COVID-19 vaccines. Inside of their research studies, Drew Weissman and Katalin Kariko at the University of Pennsylvania who are credited with inventing the mRNA technology in the COVID-19 shots and just got the biggest award in medicine for it. In October of 2023, they got the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Go look it up. Y'all probably haven't seen these faces. You should interview them next. That should be the next people you interview. And you need to ask them one question. Why, in all of your research studies since 2009 in developing the mRNA vaccines for the NIH, which they did, and I show you in my book all of the funding statements from the NIH in their papers in developing the COVID-19 shots, you need to ask them, why are they using and why are they disclosing in every research study since 2009, being paid by the NIH to develop these shots, why do you state that you use snake venom phosphodiesterase to damage the RNA of the human? Why does it say snake venom phosphodiesterase in every one of your papers in developing the mRNA COVID-19 injections? Because if you look up what snake venom phosphodiesterase is used for, when isolated from the protein of a snake, and they synthetically replicate that molecule and put it in a human, do you know what snake venom phosphodiesterase in the venom of the snake or isolated and put into a vaccine does?
Spike protein?
100%, it is published that snake venom phosphodiesterase does one thing and one thing only, causes rapid hemagglutination. Does anybody know what that fancy Latin word is? Hemagglutination?
Blood sticking together.
That is blood clotting. And what do they call the COVID-19 mRNA shots? Many medical doctors have called it clot shots for the last 4 years because of the massive amount of blood clotting being created after the vaccines. Do you want to know what creates that? It's called snake venom phosphodiesterase, people. And I created a Watch the Water documentary 3 years ago in 2022. And at the end of it, I said, oh, y'all should all be warned too. They're about to approve these COVID-19 vaccines for 0 to 5-year-olds. The whole reason for the documentary was to warn you that there is snake venom inside the COVID-19 vaccines. I would never inject that inside of children, and the FDA shouldn't approve that. Now, just so you know, if you look up, this is really awesome too, because if you look it up, remember Charles Hoff, MD in Canada? He said that all of his mRNA-injected patients developed elevated D-dimer symptoms, and he had a test that he ran. Elevated D-dimers meant that there is rapid blood clotting being formed after he injected them with the Moderna vaccine. He said 62% of all of his patients that got the Moderna shot started having blood clotting symptoms and trouble breathing. So he did this elevated D-dimer test and found that 62% of all of his COVID-vaccinated patients from the Moderna vaccine, which Catalin Carrico and Drew Weissman invented using snake venom phosphodiesterase, he stated, he called them clot shots for the first time. These are clot shots. They cause rapid clotting. And he figured it out from this elevated D-dimer test. You know what's amazing about the D-dimer test? I actually called 3 of my best buddies who are cardiologists, and I asked them about this elevated D-dimer test that I'd never heard of 4 years ago. And all of them told me in unison, we've never used this in our 40 years of being a cardiologist. We've never ran this test. We've never done it. We had to go look it up. They only saw it on their board exams back in the day. Okay, I have to tell you, they didn't know much. I didn't know anything, so I had to go look it up too. I encourage all of you. I show you in the book what medicine publishes that every medical doctor should look for when a D-dimer test comes back elevated in a human. Have you looked at this yet? Have you seen this yet?
Well, I know what happened to Rashid Buttar and how his D-dimers were elevated through the roof.
He did the D-dimer test because I told him to go do it. Because I was like, Buttar, if you believe you've been poisoned, you should go get this D-dimer test. And his was out the roof. Do you know that elevated D-dimers on medscape.com, medscape.com, you can type in medscape.com or write Medscape in Google and then type how to interpret elevated D-dimers. And that test comes up on medscape.com. There's a little button on the left that says interpretation, meaning how do you read the results of this test? Well, medical doctors and scientists out there, it actually says there's 5 things every medical doctor should look for with an elevated D-dimer. The first thing they state is you should go look for a deep vein thrombosis, a big blood clot in the leg. It doesn't tell you why the patient's clotting. It just says go look for a big blood clot in the leg of the patient if you see elevated D-dimer as a result. The second one reads, you should probably look for little bitty blood clots in the fingers and toes called intravascular coagulation. DIC is how they actually abbreviate it. Disseminated intravascular coagulation. Little bitty blood vessels throughout the fingers and toes. If you saw COVID and watched COVID really closely like I did, there were reports of COVID toes and COVID fingers in hospitalized COVID patients. Their fingers and toes would go black and they would be amputated. That is from the blood clotting related to COVID. That is these little bitty blood clots. So it runs through four examples, bullet points, 4 bullet points. 3 of them are go look for a blood clot somewhere in your patient with a Doppler or an ultrasound. The 4th bullet point reads, make sure you're evaluating your patient if they're on heparin, warfarin, or Coumadin, which are blood-thinning, blood clot-busting drugs. You might see elevated D-dimers if you're actually treating the patient with these blood clot-busting drugs. But none of Charles Hoff, MD's patients he had injected with the COVID-19 Moderna vaccine were on heparin, warfarin, or Coumadin. This is why he said, these shots are causing blood clots. He would have known if he had his patients on warfarin, Coumadin, or heparin, if that was what was causing their elevated D-dimers. I want all of you to look this up yourself. There is a 5th bullet point on the list of everything Medscape tells you, medical doctors, what you should look for in your patient if you see an elevated D-dimer test result. And I quote, all medical professionals, they write, if you see elevated D-dimers, you need to go look, and I quote, snake venom poisoning. It's the only thing written of the 5 bullet points that would even explain the Moderna vaccinated elevated D-dimers. It's the only thing. So I decided when I learned, medical doctors need to go looking for snake venom poisoning, I decided to look up who created the COVID-19 vaccines because he gave them to these people and now they have elevated D-dimers. So I needed to know who created it. Imagine my shock to find out it wasn't our buddy Robert Malone, who I've been on stages with and done documentaries with. It was amazing to read. It wasn't him. It's Drew Wiseman, Cataline Carrico, and Robert Malone definitely knows them. Robert Malone definitely set up a company, a biotech company in Southern California with Cataline Carrico in the 90s. It's a biotech company. He knows these people. But I was shocked to find it was Drew Wiseman and Cataline Carrico at the University of Pennsylvania. And then all I wanted to know is, what research did they do in the development of these COVID-19 vaccines? Because Medscape says go look for snake venom poisoning. And oh my God, in every research study, the words snake venom in English are in every one of their research studies. The exact protein is called phosphodiesterase, used to make rapid forming blood clotting. So this is where I found that information. You can read all about it in the book and learn more about it. And there are specific all-natural cures to blood clots created by venom. And you should know what these are. And this goes along with your detoxing favorite products. Snake venom phosphodiesterase. If you got these shots and you have lingering symptoms of any kind since the shots, you need to be on EDTA.
What is that?
EDTA is a heavy metal chelator. It also is the only thing published to destroy snake venom phosphodiesterase in vivo, meaning in the human body. There are 3 other things that help to clear the venom, but not as effectively as EDTA, but you should know what they are. And I write in the book how to use all these things. But vitamin C, glutathione, and N-acetylcysteine are all published cures to destroy the venom of snake venom phosphodiesterase. So if you're not on vitamin C, glutathione, NAC, or EDTA, you're really missing out because those 4 things are the only things they publish over and over and over, rid the human body of snake venom phosphodiesterase. And I want to speak to this because N-acetylcysteine, I already mentioned, everybody should be on that. It's 2,000 milligrams a day if you have blood clotting issues. That is published to cure the blood clotting created by snake venom. In fact, you have 12 blood clotting factors everybody does in the human body. And snake venom can trigger any of the 12, but there are 3 things that it doesn't matter which of those 12 cascading pathways of blood clots are being initiated. There's 3 things in nature that will cure you of blood clotting related to COVID or the vaccines. And these are detoxifiers. So you've got the EDTA I just mentioned, but licorice root extract, cinnamon bark, and N-acetylcysteine detox the human body of the blood clotting factors that are initiated by venom. So you should be on 2,000 milligrams of NAC. You should be on at least 1,000 milligrams of licorice root. You should be on at least 500 milligrams of cinnamon. And me and Dr. Ed Group at Global Healing created, who were all best friends and good friends with Dr. Buttar. I'd actually, before Dr. Buttar passed, I created a list of research studies from around the world of all the plants that have been used for millennia to prevent the deaths of people from blood clotting from venomous creatures. And we compiled a list of 12 to 15 of the number one plants found around the world to protect the blood, the nervous system, and the organs of people from the spike proteins or venoms as they have been determined to be. And we have licorice root and cinnamon in that product. It's called Foreign Protein Cleanse, and that was to address the blood clotting factors of COVID or the vaccines.
Wow. You're amazing. The amount of research that you put into everything. I've heard the episodes of your podcast, and what you pack into an hour is really incredible.
It's how my brain works. God designed it this way. I can't turn it off.
What are favorite things you like to have in your home toolkit for just things that come up, sickness?
That's a great question. Number one thing right now I recommend, and I did not say this earlier when I was talking about detoxifying from the vaccines. Please, if you do not have the book, you should get the book. Okay, the book Moving Beyond COVID-19 Lies. You can get it at drardisshow.com. It's also a bestseller on Amazon and has been since August. So if you want to go get it, go get it. But in the book, I think this is very important for all of you to understand. There's a product I have at the Dr. Ardis Show called BioDefense. I formulated this 2 years ago. I formulated it for the vaccinated for COVID and those living with people who got vaccinated for COVID because of the shedding concern from the vaccinated. Now, I only bring up this product because you asked me what should they have in their medicine cabinet right now. So I developed this product 2 years ago called BioDefense. It's a liquid extract. I don't encourage anybody to put it directly in their mouth or in water to dilute it and drink it. I don't recommend that. It's very bitter, very potent. A lot of people say it tastes like soap, but it's all organic plant extracts. And I tell people to put it in an empty vegetable capsule, 1 capsule in the morning and 1 capsule in the evening every day. Now, the reason for BioDefense, I want to speak to this, why it's so important, and I believe it should be in your medicine cabinet. The first ingredient in it is called black cumin seed oil. Black cumin seed oil is a published cure for the E. coli bacteria, Enterobacter bacteria, and yeast that the technology in the vaccines for COVID are programming to make you sick. This technology is not mRNA, by the way. Inside the vaccines is no mRNA anything. Inside all the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines is actually a different genetic technology called DNA plasmids. And the NIH actually has a document I show you in the book. There is no mRNA in any of the COVID-19 vaccines. And the NIH actually told us last year exactly what they put in all these vaccines. They're called DNA plasmids. And they program bacteria, yeast in the vaccinated person's body, or the cells of the vaccinated person to manufacture the spike proteins of COVID, which were found to be snake venoms. So if the DNA plasmids get inside bacteria and yeast in your body, and it programs those cells for the rest of their life to produce a poison inside of you called a spike protein, you have to kill the bacteria and the yeast that have been programmed with this gene therapy. Black cumin seed oil is a published cure for E. coli bacteria, Enterobacter bacteria, and the yeast they use to program those cells in your body to produce spike proteins. Now, the shedding principle is the vaccinated person has bacteria and yeast inside of them that have now been changed with DNA plasmids. And that bacteria and yeast in their body is replicating every day into new little bacteria and yeast, and they're sharing their bacteria and yeast with you. When you kiss them, have sex with them, hug them, share a drink with them, breastfeed them, you are sending the bacteria and yeast into their bodies. And as they eat sugar, consume anything that converts to sugar, that bacteria divides, and is now programmed to produce spike proteins in your body too. And eventually you're going to have symptoms also. That's the shedding principle. The ingredients in BioDefense are specific for wiping out the bacteria and yeast that prevent shedding and that concern, and help wipe out the programmed bacteria and yeast in the vaccinated that continue to produce the lingering problems produced by spike proteins. Inside of BioDefense, the first ingredient, black cumin seed oil, is also, I have since learned, a published cure for the bird flu. In fact, the NIH published in 2021 a study that references 3 natural cures for the bird flu. So anybody out there scared of the bird flu, you might want to have biodefense in your medicine cabinet. They published, though, there's also 2 other cures besides black cumin seed oil. Green leaf tea, they publish, is a cure for bird flu. So drink your refreshment, go to your grocery store. You don't need a vaccine for the bird flu.
And who published this? Who published this?
The NIH did. It's on PubMed.gov right now.
Okay.
In fact, I have a bird flu presentation at the Dr. Ardis show. It's actually titled Why Dr. Ardis is Scared of the Bird Flu. And I tell you everything about the bird flu and why you should never be scared, because I'm not scared. You should be scared. In fact, virgin coconut oil is the other published cure for the bird flu, along with black cumin seed oil. Now, 2 of those ingredients you can get in every grocery store in America. Green leaf tea, organic, go drink it. Virgin coconut oil, you can get it anywhere. Start cooking with it, use it in your life, or supplementing with it. Black cumin seed oil is not really sold in all grocery stores, but supplement companies sell it, and I have it in my biodefense product if you want to use that. It should be in your medicine cabinet if you're worried. All right, also, biodefense in combination has multiple ingredients that are published to be cures for psoriasis, eczema, hives, shingles, measles, chickenpox, you name it. So that's the ingredients in biodefense. If you know anybody with skin issues, rashes, eczema, psoriasis, doesn't matter. Take that product orally. It'll wipe it out. It's incredible, the testimonials coming in around the world. This biodefense product is a product I would recommend to anybody. I've used it for years, the combination. Just released it 2 years ago as an attempt to try to help as many people as possible around the world answer problems and worries of parasites, funguses, viruses, and bacteria. All 4 of those pathogens are eradicated by the plant extracts in combination in biodefense. That's the one thing I would recommend.
Wow. Any other top things that you like to have in your medicine chest?
Yes. All right. So this is a big one. I'll just share with you. Most people don't know this, but there's a reason why I wear a 3.5 milligram nicotine patch every day.
Mm.
And just so I know, they don't sell those. They only sell 7 milligrams, 14 milligrams, and 21 milligram nicotine patches. Remember, nicotine's not addictive, and you'll find that out when you start using nicotine that you never think about it because it's not addictive. You will think about your coffee and caffeine every morning, but you'll never think about nicotine. You'll have to be reminded to put it on because it's not addictive. I've been wearing it 3.5 years. I've never even thought about it once, and I constantly have to remember in the afternoon to go put it on. I wear a 3.5 milligram nicotine patch every day for 3.5 years, and I will for the rest of my life. You might just want to have a box, maybe. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because all the industrialized nations of the world right now, including America, now have new national health agendas. They have announced that they are going to ban all nicotine products and tobacco products from their citizens having access by the year 2030. So by the year 2030, America, Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia will have complete bans on all tobacco products and nicotine products being sold commercially. All right, so there's a reason for this. What I've learned over the last 3 years about nicotine is that the FDA, the American Medical Association, and all medical research and science and pharmaceutical industry knows that nicotine is a cure for most viruses on Earth that have been identified by science. In fact, they know that the influenza virus targets nicotine receptors in the human body to make you sick. This is why people that use tobacco products don't get the flu. Did you know that coronaviruses, which are all common cold viruses, also target nicotine receptors? Well, if you want to stop from being worried about getting the flu or common cold every year, I just wear a small nicotine patch every day that I cut. I buy bigger patches and I cut them into 3 milligram sizes and I wear one every day. One cigarette, by the way, which I've never used in my whole life. I've never smoked in my whole life. One cigarette has about 1 milligram, just so you know. So I wear about 3 milligrams worth every day, and it delivers a small amount of nicotine for 24 hours every day. It's also published that nicotine is a cure for rabies, virus, HIV, and COVID.
Good Lord.
So why don't I just wear the nicotine patch to help prevent these conditions? Did you know nicotine is also a published nootropic? And if you don't know what that fancy word means, it means it's a neurological stimulant, meaning it makes your brain work better. And it does. You will notice after using a nicotine product, you're like, oh my goodness, I have not had this much clear thought, this much memory, this clear vision in years. Yeah, there's a reason for that. So they want to sell you Adderall and Ritalin instead of nicotine. Just so you know, there's a lot more money in prescription drugs than to let you know that there's a plant extract and nutrient that provides such value. Also, I don't want to develop MS, Parkinson's, or Alzheimer's, and it is published that people that use nicotine agents or commercial tobacco products, I show you in my book all the research studies, that those who use more tobacco products throughout their life are the least at risk for developing multiple sclerosis.
Even if there's all those horrible additives in commercial tobacco
Even
products.
if it's commercially gross, toxic tobacco products,
Jeez.
they still are the least at risk for developing MS, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, or arthritis. So I wear them every single day. This nutrient is found in tons of vegetables, like I've relayed here, and I show you in the book how much nicotine's in all those vegetables also.
Do the commercial nicotine patches have all those crappy additives or not?
No, not all of them. In fact, I recommend in the book which brands, which products, and which amounts and when to use nicotine products in the book, in chapter 13, actually, if you're interested. It's also on Audible now, as of last week. You can go get
Oh,
it on
thank you. I
Audible.
was going to ask. I'm a huge Audible junkie, so that makes
So
my
go to
life
Audible. It just went live on Audible last week after it was
awesome.
checked by Amazon and Audible. And I read it. So if you want to hear my voice, tell my story, go through all my research, go ahead. There's also a Kindle version, an electronic version of my book where every research study and graphic, when you click it, it takes you to the website's actual reference live. So cool. And everything I tell you in reference, everything I've said here today is published by science.
Gosh. I'm speechless.
It's a lot.
How do you stay so cheerful, having looked at all these avenues that are less than kosher?
Yeah, this is great. This is actually a question I've been asked 24/7 by families I was representing in press conferences and lawsuits against hospitals during the whole 4 years, testifying in Capitol buildings. I always did it with a smile, with a smirk,
So you're an
laugh.
expert witness?
What?
You're an expert witness?
Oh, yeah. Oh, in fact, I was signed on as an expert witness against Boris Johnson in 2 lawsuits. I couldn't wait to go to court against that guy. But then he resigned 3 days later after 2 lawsuits with me signed on as an expert witness. I was ready. Couldn't wait. I was even asked to testify in the King's Court in Parliament, which I supplied the testimony for.
Wow.
But it was a very busy time during COVID. So
What do you think of the work of Pam Popper?
I love Pam Popper. Man, she's doing a great job. I love that lady. She doesn't get enough credit. And she's not as loud as I am in speaking. She's very soft-spoken, reserved, and just a bulldog in representing humans who have not been given informed consent truly.
Yeah, for
She's an
those of us
incredible
that
person.
want to know about her, it's Make Americans Free Again. And
I love Pam Popper. I've done many events with Pam Popper.
she's doing a lot to ensure that our constitutional rights aren't trampled on the next time around.
I wish Pam Popper was more public than she is because she deserves all the accolades, all the support.
Well, she's on Rumble and she posts
True.
every week.
No, she's awesome. She just doesn't. There's just a whole lot of other names you see more often than Pam Popper, but I believe Pam Popper should be right there in the mix with everybody. She's
Well,
incredible.
If anybody wants to find her on Rumble, she's right there and she publishes once a week giving us updates on what's going on.
And how can you not love the name Dr. Popper? I mean, it's like Dr. Pepper, right? I love Dr. Popper.
Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today. You're
Very
a
welcome.
fountain full of everything. And gosh, the information that you're putting out is spectacular. So the Dr. Ardis Show is readily available. The book is available on Amazon and Audible, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity. Anything else you'd like anybody else to access while we're done?
Yes, actually, I do. So, on top of everything else I've been doing for the last 5 years, I launched 3 years ago a conference called Healing for the Ages. And on May 24th of this year, we are doing a virtual all-day conference. It's only $69 if you want to do it. $69. You're going to hang out with us for 8 hours. 4 doctors, Dr. Ardis, Dr. Group, Dr. Ely, Dr. Schmidt. We're actually going to take you through your home. And we are going to, the whole theme of the day's conference is how to make your home healthy again. And I am going to take the bathroom, what you need to take out of your bathroom and put in your bathroom to replace that stuff with. And then Dr. Group's going to take the bedroom, Dr. Ely's going to take the laundry room, and Dr. Janice Schmidt is going to take the kitchen. How it is all of us have removed things from our kitchens, laundry rooms, bathrooms, you name it, bedrooms, and what we've put into those rooms to create a more healthier environment for us to reduce the toxic load and the radiation that we're exposed to every day.
So you're
That
going to
is-
talk. You're going to talk about how to remove EMFs from your home environment too?
100%. In fact, our last conference in September of 2024, it's called Healing for the Ages 2.0. The whole conference was about EMF radiation and how to reduce the burden of radiation on your life. The whole thing.
Fantastic.
So
What do you think
you can
about
go
the
back and
role of the
listen.
mind in healing?
Oh, we talk about this 24/7. Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, if you haven't grasped these concepts yet, if you haven't healed yourself yet, it's because you don't believe it, most likely. So you first need to get enough information and enough education to rationalize the potential that you can heal. You just don't have enough information yet. And once you understand how God designed the body, go study the human body. Go study the organs, the cells, how they operate. Go look at the pathways of how the cells work and operate. And what you'll realize is that everything on these pathways that you study the human body about, and when you study human anatomy, every part of the human body, every chemical pathway of the human body, how you digest food, how you make immunity, how you detox, how you repair tissue, all of it is controlled by nutrients. All of it is controlled by minerals you find on the periodic table of elements. You don't find prescription drugs on the periodic table of elements. They don't exist there because the human body doesn't need them. And life is not built on prescription drugs. Yet the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industrial complex has done a great job of convincing you that it's not just air, water, and food the human body needs to survive. You need air, water, food, and our prescriptions in order to live and live well. No, you don't.
And the way that they are allowed to make them prescriptions is to take nature, tweak it into something that it's not, typically resulting in it being more toxic and less effective.
Amen. For example, Ozempic and Wegovy. These are venom proteins of the Gila monster lizard in the southwestern deserts of the United States. The venom protein inside Ozempic and Wegovy, there is no GLP-1 nothing in those drugs. I'm sorry. Go look up what it's made of. It's made of a venom protein called EXENDIN-4, exendin-4, which is 100% isolated from a deadly venomous lizard in the deserts of the United States called the Gila monster lizard's venom. Now, this drug is being promoted to you for weight loss, diabetes, and heart disease. Well, I'd like to ask you, are any of you fat and overweight because you're Gila monster lizard deficient?
So what is it doing in the body? Because it is effective for people dropping weight.
Oh, yeah. You should look up how it works. It paralyzes the vagus nerve, which controls your stomach's ability to empty food into your intestines to process them. And then you're going to throw up all your food because you can't get it down past your stomach. That's called gastroparesis. The FDA just added that as a black box warning to the actual drug. But what was the initial FDA warning? Oh, if you inject this Gila monster venom-laced drug inside of you weekly for the rest of your life, which is the prescription for Ozempic and Wegovy, within 12 to 36 months, you're increasing your risk every day of developing every form of medullary thyroid cancer. And they even tell you on drugs.com, if you look up at side effects, they tell healthcare providers 1 in 5 people on Ozempic and Wegovy within just a couple years, their retinas will detach from their eyeball and they will go blind.
Oh, no.
And did you read what People magazine published last month about Ozempic?
No.
People magazine, the whole title reads, people using Ozempic are now complaining of eye rotting disease. In quotation, that's the whole title. Their eyes are literally rotting in the orbits of their skull.
People magazine published this?
People magazine.
Dang.
This is the effect of injecting venom inside the human body. You probably should stop doing that and ask your doctor if you are deficient in Gila monster venom. Ask them if blindness, thyroid cancer, and a paralyzed stomach are right for you.
Oh, my goodness. Dr.
So
Ardis.
follow healingfortheages.com, the Dr. Ardis Show. Oh, one other thing here. How many of you heard about the miscarriages related to the COVID-19 vaccines? Well, nobody's published why, except for me. Go look it up in the book. I actually take you through the whole thing. There's actually a venom protein called L-amino acid oxidase, L-amino acid oxidase, and there's a medical test for it. And I am 100% convinced it's in the COVID-19 vaccines to create the infertility. I can actually show you exactly how they create infertility with this venom protein that's already in patented vaccines for children and adults. You just didn't know that. But L-amino acid oxidase has 3 published cures. So if it's actually introduced into a person and they lost their baby or struggling to have a family, I'm telling you, the hope is in the book. They tell you there's 3 things you can do to get that venom protein out of a human to restore fertility. And I show you the research studies. They tell you zinc supplementation at 30 milligrams to 50 milligrams will do it. They tell you that heat, if you get in a sauna and get the sauna to 131 degrees, which every infrared sauna will do, if you hit 131 degrees Fahrenheit, it destroys that venom protein and the person will become fertile. They also tell you if you get the pH level of the person to 7.5 or higher which is alkaline, it destroys that venom protein and the body can detox it out and they can have a family.
Wow.
I even tell you where to tell your medical doctors to go order the test kit from and how to read the results. It is phenomenal. There's hope for all of you. You just don't know it, what that hope is. And that's why we wrote the book. The subtitle is Restoring Health and Hope for Humanity.
When somebody's looking for a healthcare provider that is knowledgeable, are there certain things that are instant tips and triggers to identify those people?
Actually, just, right now we're working on building a global directory for everybody to know who those doctors are. We're working on that right now at the Dr. Ardis Show. So that will be coming out very soon. In the next month or two, you'll have a whole directory global of all the docs we have done background checks on and have vetted who respect informed consent. Number one, they're going to make sure you know all the information before you make a decision. They will never judge you, shame you for actually saying no to a drug product or vaccine ever. This is a part of the checks we have to do to vet them. They're always open to working with you as an individual, knowing you have free agency to make choices for yourself or your loved ones or your children. And as long as they respect that first, we will recommend them to you first.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ardis. Thank you for joining us. And please leave us a comment, click the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing.
This podcast is intended for the purpose of providing information and education. It does not provide advice and is not meant to be used for any self-diagnosis or the replacement of any kind of licensed professional. The creators and individuals appearing here do not endorse any specific tests, positions, medications, products, or procedures. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.